she still believed that what she and Strain had was love, even though Strain doesn't want to sleep with her anymore as she grow older because she doesn't have a body of a child anymore. Think about how disturbing that is. Hi peeps, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Runzi. I'm an artist, but I usually enjoy talking about mental hygiene, personal development, and spirituality related topics. So if you're interested in any of this, please hit like and subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. So guys, as promised, today we are going to discuss about My Dark Vanessa. Honestly guys, this is such a good read. I wouldn't call it enjoyable. That's definitely not the best way to describe My Dark Vanessa. It is an extremely disgusting and dark light novel. The author did a really good job to describe abuse in a really graphic way. She definitely did not put rose-tinted filters onto abuse, and she definitely did not sugarcoat anything. So trigger warning if you are not up to read anything that's abuse related, especially if there's like age gap involved, if you get what I mean. I think it's best to skip reading My Dark Vanessa. It is a good read, but it's not for everyone. So initially, I want to do a mini breakdown. However, after I think through things, I realized that I don't really want to talk about this story because you can read it on your own. I'm just gonna discuss a little bit about age gap relationship. I personally am very passionate to discuss about age gap relationships. There's two types of age gap relationships. One is where you have an age gap there, however both of you are in the same life pool, which means that maybe he is 50 and you are in your 30s, for example. Oh my god, that's such a huge gap. Okay, maybe you're in your 40s but he's in his 50s. Maybe you are both working adults, or maybe both of you have the same life experiences already. It kind of makes sense because you have a lot of things in common. You can somewhat understand each other better. However, the other age gap relationship where someone is actually already like established in this society while you are still young, fresh and impressionable, you're still trying to figure yourself out, it just doesn't work. Well, honestly, I personally don't have anything against age gap relationship, whether it is older male or older female with a younger male or female, it doesn't really matter. If the attraction is healthy, by all means go for it. However, I think there's just a lot of predators out there, so it's better if we watch ourselves, although I'm not that young myself. I'm kind of exposing myself right here. But I still think that adolescence is a concept, it's a state of mind. You can be an adult and still have the mindset like an adolescent, like a teenager. In My Dark Vanessa, there's actually two timelines where one, she was around I think 14 or 15, and the other timeline she is in her 30s. I believe it's her early 30s. So it's really nice to see how the author lay out Vanessa's perspective based on her age. When I was reading Vanessa during her teenage years, it definitely hit home. It definitely hit home so hard. She felt like she's the wallflower. She couldn't fit in anywhere, and it seems like no boys are actually paying attention to her because apparently it is quite a big deal as a teenager. Well, not for everyone, but I do believe that a lot of young girls kind of crave for attention from the opposite gender. Well, unless you're not straight, it's a very normal thing for you to be attracted to the opposite gender and to crave for validation from the opposite gender. It's just a biological thing. It's kind of like puberty in a way. It's a phase where you are discovering your sexual identity or maybe your preferences. But regardless of whether you are the popular kid or if you are the wallflower, it doesn't really matter. Abuse can happen to anyone, anywhere, regardless of your background. I can definitely relate with how Vanessa has a proper family. Both her parents are in the picture. They seem pretty supportive. However, she still feels like she couldn't fit in. She feels like boys her age are not interested in her and nobody's taking notice of her. and the things that she is interested in is very different from her peers. So it's very natural for kids or even adults to isolate yourselves when you find that nobody around you are interested in the things that you like, or nobody actually appreciates you for who you really are. That can definitely contribute to low self-esteem, as you feel like you are not worthy to be seen because nobody is there to validate you. You don't know where you stand in the society or within your circle because you never actually had any positive feedback from anyone at all. And it's so obvious that Vanessa is craving for some sort of validation from people around her age, because let's be real, validation from your parents are very different when it comes to support from people around your age or just out there in the world, right? It's a really different thing. I don't even know how to describe it. Even as an adult now, I can still recall how much I crave external validation as a young girl, and it's so common. In fact, Vanessa actually had a best friend. They kind of fall out from each other, but Vanessa was extremely intrigued by her best friend. She was infatuated by her. She wants to be like her because Jenny, her best friend, is the popular kid, although she did not mention it explicitly, but it's pretty obvious in her 14 or 15 years old mind. She is really intrigued by Jenny, and Jenny has a boyfriend, Vanessa doesn't, so obviously Jenny is definitely the more popular one. And even the way Vanessa describes herself shows that she has really low self-esteem. I'm just gonna read a little bit for you guys. It's both creepy and out of my control. This ability I have to notice so much about other people when I'm positive, no one notices anything at all about me. So it's very obvious that she felt like the wallflower, that nobody actually knows who she is. She's this dark, mysterious girl. Obviously, low self-esteem, as you guys probably already know, is the best target for abusers. It's the best target for manipulators. When you're scanning through a crowd, it's actually really easy to spot someone with low self-esteem. You might fake it, you might be able to try to fake your confidence, but I don't know what it is, but I feel like us humans, we have that very odd sixth sense. Unless you're really out of touch with yourself, most of us have really good gut instincts. So when you're scanning through a crowd, you can tell whether someone has genuine self-confidence or not. So in Strain's case, which is her abuser, the pedophile, oh my god, he's such a disgusting person. Even though he's a fictional character, I still feel really disgusted by him. Usually manipulators and abusers have really good ways to pick out their victims. I don't want to phrase it like I'm praising them, but they are just good at what they're doing. Being a pedophile, that's just so disgusting. I actually brought up My Dark Vanessa to my brother, who is currently studying neuroscience. He's going to graduate his master's soon, so he's pretty well versed in the brain chemical and all these psychology related topics. So when I brought up Strain's character to him, he told me that usually abusers, pedophiles, manipulators like that are aware of what they're doing, but their brains are so messed up to the point that they convince themselves that what they're doing is actually justifiable. They're not only good at gaslighting their victims, they're also really good at gaslighting themselves. He ended up taking his own life, not because he felt guilty of what he had done to Vanessa and his other victims. Yes, Vanessa is not the only one. There are other girls who are involved with his sick interest. I don't even know what you call it. He don't actually take his life out of guilt, but he doesn't want to be labeled as a pedophile. That's the only reason why he took his own life. He doesn't want to face the truth because his brain is just so good at convincing himself that what he did was right. Society is wrong for judging him. Society is wrong for him falling in love with a girl that is underage. And I'm so amazed by how good the author described him. He's not even hot, you know, guys. He looks greasy. Even if he's hot, it's still disgusting, guys. Manipulators are manipulators. Abusers are abusers. Let's stop giving all these horrible people pretty privilege. He is such a coward. He'd rather take his own life than to face the consequences of being an abuser. He gaslighted Vanessa for almost half her life to believe that she is the one that caused him pain. And he even made her apologize to the school because someone found out their relationship and they reported it to the boards. And Strain, being the horrible person he is, convinced Vanessa to admit that it was all a lie, that Strain did not act on her. And throughout the novel, you can see how he groomed Vanessa little by little, how he reeled her in, and it's really easy for people who are loners, who don't have good support groups and usually outcasts. It's really easy for people like that to fall victim. And Strain, being the creep he is, pays attention to all these small details that Vanessa has, like the outfit that she wears, her hair color, the poems that she wrote. Like, which grown adult actually compliments a young girl about how beautiful her hair is? I don't know, I think in general it's just weird. And he don't just praise her platonically. If you read the novel, you know what I mean. He was being such a creep, and he even tested the waters by borrowing Vanessa the famous literature Lolita. If you guys had not read or heard of Lolita, it's basically a literature written from the perspective of a predator who convinced himself that he is in love with a young little girl. It's that disturbing. Strain basically borrowed her something that disturbing. And Vanessa, being the edgy teenager she is, well, she's not exactly edgy, but she's dark and she's mysterious, so she want to come off as a cool kid, I guess. She wants to be accepted by Strain. She wants to show that she's not like the other girls because she can appreciate dark literature, she can appreciate disturbing literatures like that. It's very common for young people to do that. Let's admit it, I had been a teenager once. I definitely do that as well. Honestly, this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like Vanessa kind of convinced herself that Lolita is enjoyable. Well, honestly, it's well written, but it's a disturbing work, especially when you receive it from an older man who seems to be interested in you. When someone finally pays attention to you, like how Strain pays attention to Vanessa, she probably felt the need to reciprocate reciprocate his feelings and his attention. She has to do something, right? She has to give him something in return. That's how he slowly groomed her into sexual encounters, which is so disturbing. The first time they slept together was really graphically described, and it was not written in a romantic way at all. It is written in Vanessa's perspective, and it is just so hard to stomach through. It is so disgusting. Well, Strain has a way with his words and the way he do things. He's constantly seeking for consent from Vanessa just so that he can feel better about what he did, feel good about his actions. However, when you are a teenager dealing with an adult, it's really easy for us to kind of let them lead us along, kind of let them manipulate us in a way. We don't feel like it's a form of manipulation until we get out of it to see it from a third person's perspective. Especially when your brain is still developing, it's still a really confusing phase, especially during your teenage years. Although I think that life in general is really confusing. However, I do believe that teenage years is usually when we develop our sense of self, our self-identity, self-image. And in My Dark Vanessa, throughout her life, you can see that there are so many disgusting predators out there. In fact, when she was in college, I think she was in college or university, one of her professors actually married his student. So that's sus. When someone is playing with their power, with their authority to manipulate you around, to gaslight you, it can still be a form of abuse. You don't need someone to verbally abuse you, to attack you, to physically hit you, to call that an abuse. When Vanessa entered her 20s, when she was a legal adult, they kind of go on public dates. I wouldn't call it dates, but he did take her out for dinner and whatnot. All he wanted from her was just sex. He just wanted to sleep with her. And there's this scene that really icks me. When Vanessa was crying, she was trying to express her concerns to him. She was breaking down. And what Strain did next was to just get on top of her. This story took place during the Me Too movement, where a lot of people came out talking about their abuse. She kind of felt like she couldn't relate with them. She convinced herself to believe that she is in control here, that Strain is her victim because she is the one that attracted him into her life. She messed up his life. She couldn't exactly perform well in her adult life. She was kind of like an alcoholic at one point too. Because of this whole weird messed up situation, it's all linked. Whether you want to believe or not, your relationships with people around you, romantically, or just friendships or anything, just relationships in general, does contribute to the quality of your life. I was really disappointed in her mother, to be honest, because at the beginning I can see that she is a quite supportive mom. She is there for Vanessa. However, when she found out their relationship, she wasn't capable of doing anything. In fact, she tried to act like nothing happened. She tried to brush things off and throw things under the rug, because if they don't speak about it, it's probably gonna die off eventually. But when you enable your child to be in such horrible, weird, abusive relationships, let's be real, as long as an adult is dating a child, it is an abuse, okay? It is a form of manipulation. When you enable something like that, it can cause them a lot of damage. They will carry all that unpacked trauma towards their adulthood, and eventually everything is going to come pouring out, and who knows what's going to happen. It's going to lead to a lot of unwanted mental illnesses. In this book, you can see that a lot of people are actually enabling the whole situation between Strain and Vanessa. It is hinted throughout the book, but they're not doing anything at all, and they just let things slide. I think it's exactly the same in real life. Anyone can be a victim and anyone can be an abuser. You don't exactly need an old greasy guy to be the abuser. It can also be a younger, attractive, man who had everything together, someone who appears to be charismatic. Those can be abusers too. There is no one size when it comes to an abuser. They can look like anything, they can look like anyone, so just be very careful with who you're interacting with, especially nowadays with the internet. There's just so many creeps online, so be very careful with who you're interacting with, because if you're watching this as a teenager, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the advice that adults give you are not really going to go into your ear, because I had been a teenager once. I know you just want to be who you are, you just want to be yourself. However, just be very careful, and if you feel like something doesn't sit right with you, pull yourself out of this situation. Talk to a friend about it, or talk to maybe a trusted adult about it. In Vanessa's situation, a lot of the abuse that she went through, like the whole sexual coercion, she doesn't really have anyone to turn to. Vanessa doesn't blame her mom for it. She came to terms that her mom was just doing what she could. And yes, Vanessa's mom did apologize. However, I can see very clearly that even though her mom kind of enabled this whole thing going on, but she is still trying to process things in her own way. Sometimes, even if we want to protect the children around us, it is not as easy as it seems. The way that we cope with our own issues, with our own traumas, can kind of bleed into that situation as well. It's hard for you to stand up for your child if you don't know how to stand up for yourself. And I like how Vanessa actually took action to seek for therapy, for professional help, even though her ex-boyfriend was the one that kind of forced her to see a therapist. She was still in denial in her early 30s. She still believed that what she and Strain had was love, even though Strain doesn't want to sleep with her anymore as she grows older, because she doesn't have a body of a child anymore. Think about how disturbing that is. And she even knew that Strain was touching other girls in his school. As a grown adult, when Vanessa was in her 30s, she knew that Strain was touching some of his young students. And she allows him to do that because it's just touching. She's trying to defend him, she's trying to be there for him, she's trying to take up all his blames. He became like that because of her. I don't want to make fun of this situation, but it is so disturbing. I feel like Strain deserved to be made fun of. I don't even think he deserved to take his own life. He has to be punished. Well, I think that they have some issues in their brain where even if you punish them, they will still think that their actions are justifiable because they fall in love with a minor. I do genuinely think that people like that are really, really disturbed in their brains. They don't function like normal people. So even if you punish them, it's kind of pointless. However, I still think that he deserves to be punished. I really like the ending in My Dark Vanessa because you don't always get the closure that you want. It's not like a yay, hero save the day kind of book. Sometimes life just happens and you don't always get a closure. You cannot understand everything. So Vanessa had to eventually grieve his death and grieve what she had lost throughout these years by spending her time with an abuser, with a manipulator, with a pedophile, she had to come to terms that what they had wasn't love. And it was really difficult for her. But going to therapy definitely does help her see herself. There's this misconception where a lot of people think that therapies are meant to fix you, are meant to help you. Honestly, therapists can do that for you. You have to do that yourself. The whole reason why you seek for a therapist is for you to seek for yourself. They are just trying to give you some tools, some guidance to allow yourself to speak to yourself and to reflect on yourself. It's all about yourself. The therapist, the person who is working, is just there to guide you through. So Vanessa did definitely follow through her therapy sessions, and I love one of the quote that her therapist told her. I'm gonna read it for you guys because I love this so much. I even highlighted it. I love her therapist so much. She's such a great therapist, to be honest. Here's what her therapist Ruby mentioned. Honestly, Vanessa, what I'm hearing is that he was a very weak man. And even as a girl, you knew that you were stronger than him. You knew he couldn't handle being exposed, and that's why you took all the fall. You're still trying to protect him. This quote is so powerful. I think it speaks to a lot of abused victims. The abusers are usually really weak and patsy people. They couldn't take the fall, they couldn't take the blame, they couldn't even face themselves. And a lot of the times, abuse victims actually believe that they themselves are the abusers. They themselves are the perpetrators. They themselves deserve to be punished. A lot of the times, victims can't see themselves as victims. Honestly, I can totally sympathize with that, because who wants to feel like they're the weak one? Who wants to feel like they have no control? Who wants to feel like they're being cheated on, like they're being scammed, right? It is a very complex situation. It definitely takes a lot of self-work, self-awareness, and exposure to understand abuse, to understand yourself, to understand the situation that you have been in. So the next time if you ever talk to any abuse victims, instead of asking them like, why can't you report it to the authorities? Why can't you get out of your toxic relationship? Maybe try to be a little bit more compassionate and see things from their perspective, because they had been living in a lie for so long to the point that they are convinced that the lie that they live in is their reality. So yeah guys, I'm not a mental health professional. I can't give you any tips or advice on how to cope with abuse, on how to get out of abuse. I think that if you are dealing with situations like that, you definitely need to talk to a professional to seek for actual help instead of watching YouTube videos here. So I really hope that you enjoy listening to me talk, and although there are so many points that I don't get to cover in this video, because this video is gonna be super long if I keep talking non-stop and I'm running out of my voice, so I really want to end the video here. If you guys are interested in the story, get a copy for yourself. It's definitely a good read, provided that you are not at a low point in your life. If you want to point out that I missed out any points at all, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, because I definitely couldn't cover the entire book in this one video. Feel free to share your opinions and your thoughts. I always enjoy reading your comments, and thank you so much if you stick through with me in this entire video. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you being here with me. And that's it from me for today. I will talk to you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!